Now that we've created our purchase order, the next natural step is to add on purchase costs, to take into account all the costs associated with getting the purchase from the supplier to your warehouse. So there's a couple of ways that we can get to the screen where we can add on purchase costs, and you'll find what method suits your working style. So if you're in the purchase order itself, you can go ahead and click Costs. If you're not in the purchase order, you can search for the purchase order in the global search on the top right. My favourite way is to go into View Purchases, and using the action cog, I can select Costing. You can also go into Add Purchase Costs, use the advanced search to find the purchase order that you need to add costs to. Again, either way, you'll get to the screen that we're currently seeing. Now what we need to do is we need to select the supplier who's charging us for any of the additional costs in getting the goods to us. This could be the same supplier that you're purchasing from, or it could be another company, like a freight forwarding company. We just need to set them up as a supplier in Unleashed. Pop in the cost amount, whether or not it's taxable, a cost date, and a reference number. You could use this to track the invoice number. Also, add comments. I'm going to put in what the cost was for and a tracking number just for reference. Now the supplier I've chosen for this cost line is the supplier that I'm purchasing the goods from. But again, this could be a supplier like a freight forwarding company. I've set them up as a supplier in Unleashed. I pop on the cost, reference, and comments and add this in. Now as we're adding in these cost lines, we're actually distributing the cost against our purchase order lines. Now I have 5 lines, so I'm not going to split the total cost amount into 5. I'm going to be a bit smarter about it. By default, Unleashed will allocate the purchase costs based on the amount. So looking in a little further at our purchase lines, our least expensive item is going to get less freight allocated to it than our more expensive items. So looking at our bottle caps, the cheapest item we have, we're allocating just a small portion of freight. We can see the total cost that we're allocating for that line, and then the total unit cost, which is basically your purchase cost plus the freight. Now a more expensive item, the grains in this particular case, has a little bit more freight allocated to it. As mentioned, Unleashed will allocate it based on the price. However, you can override that to whatever cost weighting you'd like. Simply change the cost total. If you do so, the cost total needs to add up to the total cost lines, so all of the freight. Now today we've added on freight, but it could be any costs associated in getting the goods from your supplier to your warehouse. Once you've added in the costs you need, you can complete the costings, which changes the purchase order status from parked or placed to costed. So everyone knows where it's at in its life cycle. As you do, you're going to get some lovely documentation showing you the breakdown. Now if you've made a mistake or need to change the cost lines, you can roll back the costing at any stage to change it. Now that we've added in the purchase costs, our next natural step is to receipt the purchase order once the goods arrive.